Hello dear, you're welcome to Yvonne Winifred UG. So to start off with this skirt, you have to take your length, the length of the skirt. So in this case, I just measured from the waist of the person that I'm making the skirt for to below, just slightly below the knees. And I'll start off my measurements by taking off 2 inches, and those 2 inches are what I'm considering as the belt or the waistband. Those 2 inches are for the waistband, so I'll just be putting that in mind, that I'm taking off the 2 inches. That is kind of, you're just kind of imagining your waistband, so don't consider that line that is already there. So from the top, I'm marking 8 inches, and at that 8 inches line, that is where my hip line or hip measurement is. Consider not that line, it was already there on the fabric before we started marking out. So this is where my hip measurement will be. Remember, it is at 8 inches line, marking from the top, considering the 2 inches. So I folded my front and back pieces together, and our back piece is wider than the front piece by 1 inch, and that 1 inch is what we'll be considering as the zipper allowance. This skirt has a zip at the back, at the center back. So now taking off my waist measurement plus 1 inch that allowance, then plus more 2 inches as sewing allowance. I'm marking it there. Remember, to get your waist measurement, you just get your round waist measurement, divide by 4, and whatever you get is what you mark here as your waist measurement. We are dividing by 4 since the pieces are folded into 4. So after the waist measurement, I went to the hip line and I did the same. My hip measurement divided by 4, and I added 2 inches seam allowance, and whatever I got is what I marked. So from the hip line, I just connect the line to where I marked my waist measurement. Remember that will be considering won't go up to the hip line, so I didn't consider that measurement at the hip line. So afterwards, you just have to make sure you neaten your edges and then cut out. I just marked my line as a straight line, but when I'm cutting, I have to put in mind that hip the hip is not straight, it is a little bit curved, so I curve it as I'm cutting. And if you have your hip curve ruler, just use that, but I mostly use freehand. So now, taking our front piece, we have to determine where we want to put our slit. So you know how we measure the dart placement. So I'm taking off 4.5 inches, just the way we place our dart, and I'm just marking 4.5 inches from the top to the bottom, and that is where I'll be marking my slit. So just place that line just the way you are marking just the way you usually mark your that placement, and just connect those points, and you just come out with a line, and along that line, that is where we're going to be placing our slit, just from top to bottom. And you just do this. So after marking out that line, and after also considering where you're going to put your slit, either on the left or on the right side. So from the top, I just marked 14 inches, I marked 14 inches, and that is where my slit will go. That the owner of this skirt doesn't want, all her thighs to be out. That's why we are taking off 14 inches. But if you want your thighs to be out, you can just take about 10 inches from the top. But we don't want that slit to be a little bit too long. That is why we are considering 14 inches. So along that line, from that line, I'm marking out 1.5 inches on both sides of the line. And after marking those 1.5 inches, I just connect where my slit opening will be, as you see me doing here. And there I'm determining just the width of the slit opening. So you just neaten up your lines and then open up your skirt. Mind you, I'm marking this slit on the wrong side of the fabric, and when it's on the right side of the fabric, the slit will be at the right side of of that front piece. But if you want it on the left side, just mark it accordingly. Just do what you want. It's fashion and designing. You just design according to your preference. So I just cut out that marked piece, and I just split my piece into two up to the top, just like that. So this is what we have now. Remember, this is the wrong side, and taking it to the right side, my front piece will be like this. So now I've just cut it into two, and I've just marked out the slit opening, and that is how it will be. So after all that, I just went ahead and cut first some lining for the back piece. But remember, we have to open up this back piece. The lining is already open. So after here, I just did the same for the front too. I cut some lining for the front. These two patches will just be ironed out. So this is what I have for the back. So you can just go ahead and pin it so that it is placed together. But remember, when you're sewing, you have to pin it to the wrong side, because you'll be sewing at the wrong side of the fabric. So when sewing, it will be just like that. So I did the same for the front, and this is how it looks like. So I'll just take my pieces and just sew them. So this is what I have after sewing, guys. After I took them to the sewing machine and I joined my lining to the main piece, this is what I have. And afterwards, I'll just take this this front piece and just join them along that line, along that slit line, by 1/2 inch. That is where I'll be joining. And this is how the back is looking after joining, the main piece to the lining. This is how it looks like. Remember, I have that 1 inch seam allowance for the zipper, and I'll just take it like that. Remember, that is the zipper allowance, and we just take this, we mark where our dart is supposed to be, and I'll just sew my darts along those areas. So this is it, guys. After sewing the dart, all my darts for the back pieces are already done. The dart is 4.5 inches long. So this is it after sewing the front piece, joining the two sides of the front pieces. So this is how it will look like. So after all that, I have to join both the front pieces and the back pieces together. So this is how I'll be placing them. that is the zipper allowance, and then I'll be joining by half an inch or 1 inch according to the seam allowance that I left, and I will just join the sides. And after joining the sides, that will be easier to just cut out our waistband. So let me just take this to the sewing machine. After the sewing machine, this is what I have. I've joined all the sides accordingly, just according to the seam allowance that I left. And this is the inside of the skirt. We are getting there. I'm just excited. So I have to measure all around this waist area so that I cut out my waistband. So measuring just like that, I have about 31 inches seam allowance added too. So I just get a piece of fabric, I measure my length and then add some seam allowances. Then the width is supposed to be 5 inches, just such that when folded it will be 2.5 inches. Half an inch being our seam allowance, and the 2 inches is the width of our waist belt. So I just did that, cut long till I got what I wanted, and this is what I wanted. Remember, the length is about 31 inches long and the width is about 2.5 inches on fold, just like this. This is how it looks like when it is on fold, and this is the waist belt or the waistband. So I have to sew along that line. I'll just join it and it will just look like that after joining. But before joining, guys, I have to finish up the ends of this belt by half an inch seam allowance so that they are neat, and that is where I will add them after to the main skirt. So this is what I have after joining my waistband to the skirt, and I also added that zip or that zipper. I'll just overlock those raw edges on the inside of my skirt, and this is how the zipper looks like. I'm loving the skirt. I wish it was mine, but So now we have to cut out that bow tie or that bow that is supposed to be fixed onto the slit. So my measurements are 9 inches by 11 inches, seam allowances considered, and I'll just finish up the ends at the sewing machine. So one of my my black fabrics is interlined so that it is a little bit stiffer. I also cut out this long piece of fabric, not so long. It will help at the tightening. So after sewing, I left about 2 inches where I will flip out my bow. That is the interlining, that white piece you see there. So after flipping it out, this is what I have. So now I have to form that bow, and then I will tie it with that small piece of fabric that I sewed. But after flipping it out, I have to finish up this opening by top stitching or hand stitching. So this is how I will be folding my bow. So you can either make some pleats until your bow is formed, just the way I am doing, neatly and gently. Just fold it until the bow is formed, and then you neaten up all the ends just like this. So for the bow, you just cut out according to your desired measurements. Don't just do just as I did. You can make it bigger or even smaller. Even the slit, you can make it longer or even shorter, just according to your preference. So I'll just get a piece, a thread and a needle, and I'll just tie my bow to the skirt. Just on top of where my slit opening starts from, just on top there. You have to knit and knit and tie it so very tightly. And this is how this is where the bow will go, just on top of the skirt, just there, just along the front piece. And you can top stitch these two ends of the bow, here and here, just so that the bow is well, you know, placed and neatly and tightly placed. So after that, I'll just finish the hem and the skirt will be done, guys. This is the finished product. I'm loving this skirt. I'm just loving this skirt. So if you want a decent skirt, make that slit a little bit short, not too long, but you know, just according to your preferences. And this is how the skirt looks like. The bow is well finished, and that's it, guys. I'll see you in my next video. I love you. Thanks always for watching these videos. God bless you for me. Just God bless you for me. See you soon. This is the skirt. So neat. Bye.